Hey everybody, happy Monday, and welcome to Ask a Freelancer with Denise. I'm answering your questions that you had over the weekend, and I'm hoping I'll provide a little bit of insight to them. And also wanted to say I am not a videographer. I found out today. Tried to pre-record this and edit it and make it all sound kind of nice, but hey, guess what? I'm not a videographer, like I said, so you're stuck with me until I can figure out how to make a video not look hokey. I wanted to answer questions two of you had, and I'm hoping that answering them will kind of bring up more questions for other people. I want to keep this going, and I'm hoping to make Monday my day that I do it. So first question that I had was actually from my dear friend April from when I went to college. And April, I hope you're doing well. Wanted to give you a shout out. Your question was, I've been seriously considering the freelance thing, but I have no idea where to start. I have all these ideas floating around, but no way to structure them or put them to use. And that's something that I experienced as a beginning freelancer, and I'm sure most freelancers do experience it. So the first thing to do really is just like figure out what you are best at and what you like to do. So for instance, I am good-ish at crocheting, and I am also good at mosaics. I am not good enough at these things to make a living off of them. I can 100% say that. And then something I am okay at but do not like doing as a freelancer is providing sitter services for children. So I don't hate children. I actually love children, and one of my favorite 9-to-5 actual on a payroll jobs was at a camp. But I mean, it's just not something I want to do with the rest of my life. So that's where writing kind of came in. I've always liked writing, and I've always wanted to make a career out of that. So I thought, okay, hey, I know how to write. I know what I want to do. Now I just kind of have to make it fit into like the corporate world, which is kind of crappy. And I know there are poets out there like me who make a living just off of poetry, and when I can figure out how to do that, that will be what I'm doing. But until then, I enjoy what I'm doing right now, which is just getting commissioned to write random stuff for people. So once I had that vision in mind, just kind of being like, I'm going to make writing work for me. I'm going to do it on my own, and I'm going to get commissions from people. Then I kind of made a plan. So my plan was admittedly not as well thought out as I wanted it to be. So what happened was I was working as a tech support agent for a large tech company, and I really hated that. That was one of the most soul-destroying jobs I've ever had. And I also knew that when I quit that job, I did not want to go back to teaching, because that's just not something that I was good at. So I set a goal to be done at that job by April, kind of mid-April, so that when I quit, I could go on a little vacation with Miles, and then I'd start freelancing again. Because I had already been freelancing for a little bit. So I did all that, but in hindsight, what I would have done, and this is something I think anyone who's thinking about freelancing should do, is have some money in savings. So I had like about a month's worth of like savings that I had at my disposal. What I really needed was like 6 months worth. And I ended up using credit cards, which, I mean, I'm not like drowning in debt right now, but I wish I wasn't paying off credit cards right now, because then I would feel like a very rich person. I mean, same with student loans too. If I wasn't paying off student loans and credit cards right now, I would be very well off. But that was the choice I made, and I am kind of advocating that people who do want to get into freelancing, unless you're like absolutely desperate and it's making your life completely miserable, which in my case, that was the truth, definitely have a game plan before you quit, a game plan that lasts more than just a month. And then after that, just go ahead and join freelancer groups and join in the discussion. So, April, I know you're kind of craftsy, so doing like Etsy and craft sites like that, just kind of looking at how people operate, what the most successful Etsy businesses look like, what they do, like do they use banners, do they use ads, things like that. For me, or for anyone who does like sort of written work, stuff that you can sort of showcase but not as well as art, doing the same thing, sort of seeing how people operate, seeing how people promote their work, and then kind of joining in the competition along that. So sites I used when I first started getting to work were Freelancer.com, which you can use for art, but from what I've seen, it's a lot harder to get an art job that way, unless you're doing like graphic design. Fiverr.com, which I haven't had too much experience with or too much success with, but it is a good option, especially if you're an artist. Upwork.com is what I initially made my first successful moves on. And then I honestly used Craigslist for my first big freelancing job, and that's one you should be wary about because there are creeps out there. But there's also some good people, and I made really good money, and I enjoyed that job while it lasted. So, and that was actually the first big job that I had starting in freelancing. This is something you'll find out too as a freelancer, is sometimes jobs just kind of evaporate because most people who are looking for freelancers don't need them long term. And I say that kind of loosely because that's just been my experience. It could be that there are a lot of people looking for long-term freelance writers or long-term freelance artists, but I get a lot of gigs rather than jobs. So, yeah, and then have a plan for once you're ready to get into it. So, have an end date for quitting your job, have some savings, and then have some like backup plans. So like there's a lot of great places where you can get freebie stuff, nothing like big, like it won't last you for very long, but you can get like, you know, like freebie shampoos, like from like some of the bigger companies, freebie laundry detergent, stuff like that. That helps you out in a pinch. And don't be afraid to use like food banks if you're hungry and a freelancer. I think artists too frequently underuse community help like food banks and free clinics and things like that. And I know that as a freelancer, I have had to use those like once in a while, like every month or so. Well, not every month or so. Like when I first started out, I used it like once or twice, the local food bank, and it was really helpful. You know, keep yourself healthy, things like that. So hope that answers your question. And yeah, I had a lot of other great questions from Jessica, who is another friend back from high school. Hi, Jessica. Shout out. Hope you're doing well. And Jessica actually had a lot of awesome questions that I kind of want to do some mini-sodes on, like once I figure out how to actually make movies. So the first question that Jessica had was, how do you find new clients? And that's a great question. I mentioned a couple of freelancing platforms when I was talking about April's question, and those are ones that I definitely stand by. They work pretty well. They do have their quirks. Freelancer.com makes my computer freeze consistently, and Freelancer.com and Upwork.com both take pretty hefty chunks out of your final paycheck, like as a commission. If you get the right amount of job, you barely, like the right paying job, you barely notice it. But I know like a couple of jobs I took as an initial freelancer that were kind of low paying, you felt the sting. Whereas like Craigslist, you don't generally get any money taken out of your final commission. So, and then something that I didn't mention in April's question was that I get a lot of clients by word of mouth. So something that does kind of, or is a perk of being a freelancer the longer you go, is that you get clients and then you continue to use those clients, but also they recommend you to other folks. So for instance, I do tiny jobs for the editor of a client that I have, who kind of found me out through reading my work a lot. She's like, hey, I like your writing style. Can you do, Amazon product pages for my small business? So I've been doing stuff like that. I get a lot of like secondhand clients from other clients, so that's been really good. Now another question you had was, do you send out pitches or advertise in any way? And that's a great question. In terms of pitches, yes, I do pitch a lot. So the biggest places I pitch are on like Freelancer.com and Upwork.com. And if you are going to use those initially, you'll find out that they do take up quite a bit of your time if you're not doing them correctly. So my sort of advice to people on that who are starting out on Freelancer.com or Upwork.com is take your time with your pitches. Don't copy and paste them. Believe it or not, they can tell if you're copying and pasting your pitches, even if you update them to be specific to that client. Just take your time, even if they're short pitches. They generally, folks always look at your profile, so